you got all sorts of money freed up because he's only making like $1 million plus, right? So it's if you want to dive in a little bit and take advantage of a quarterback on a rookie contract, like this seems like the season to do it. And Hassan Reddick, I think, can do that effectively. He's going to be going after the passer, I don't know, 80, 90% of the time. I mean, you don't pay somebody that much money not to.
It's a triple Mac attack here on Birds 365. McMullen, McDonald, and there he is. Got the Ted Lasso mustache working. Outstanding reporter for ESPN, our buddy Tim McManus. T-Mac, how you been?
Jody Mac, Johnny Mac, what's happening?
Yeah, Mac attack. Mac, what is it? It's not square.
Cube.
What's third? Yeah, cube. Thank you. I'm not the math whiz. That's Jody Mac here, Tim. But Mac, exciting for one day. Where should we start, Tim? Let's start with Deebo Samuel, because Jody and I were talking about it a little bit before you came on. So you were the one at Howie's pre-draft availability that asked him about the wide receiver position, sort of the uptick in salaries, to say the least. Obviously, he'd be a fit for the offense. He'd be a fit for anybody's offense from being a playmaker. But there's a lot of ancillary stuff with Deebo Samuel. But I'm going to start with, would the Eagles even considering the draft assets you would have to give up to get a player like that, plus the extension, and you got to go over $20 million average annual value. Do you think the Eagles would even consider something like that?
I mean, yeah, consider, but then would they act on it, I guess, is probably a separate thing. And I don't know, especially based off those comments that you referenced from Howie Roseman at his pre-draft presser, John, that they're going to go down that avenue. Basically, he said, when one team goes left, you have to go right. The boom right now is wide receivers. You see Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill averaging $30 million with their new contracts. And Deebo Samuel is going to, I don't know, you have to give up probably a 1+ or, a sweet package, whatever that looks like. And then also pay him a new contract that's going to make it tough cap-wise to build out the rest of a young roster. I just don't think they're there yet. As tempting as he may be, and I do think, to your point, he's a great fit for just about every offense. But I do picture him in this one and how potent that could be. Like if you have Jalen Hurts at a mesh point with Miles Sanders, with Deebo Samuel coming around on a jet sweep, and where's he going to go with that? I mean, that could be really effective, not to mention being able to just hit him over the middle on a quick strike, have him get yards after the catch. It makes life easier on Jalen Hurts. I think he would be a beautiful fit in Philly. I really do. So that's why you have to consider it. But given all the other factors that go along with it, I just don't know that that's a move that they're going to ultimately pursue.
So if that's the case, T-Mac, does that mean they're not in play for a guy like A.J. Brown either, who Jalen Hurts has been working out with this offseason and probably trying to whisper sweet nothings into his ear about helping to facilitate a trade to Philadelphia, since we found out, wide receivers can do that. Devontae Smith got himself traded to Vegas. Tyreek Hill got himself diverted from New York to Miami. So guys have the power now to make it happen. If somehow A.J. Brown had that kind of power, Eagles not in play for him either because the cost is just too much.
I think it kind of, you run up into the same type of issue, but it's not like the Eagles haven't been trying to get wide receivers. Like we know that they came really close to trading for Calvin Ridley before he got suspended for the season. And they also took a run at Christian Kirk, but everything kind of has its limits. Like Ridley, you could have had him at a better value than what ultimately ended up happening in the wide receiver market where it exploded. So that kind of made sense from their standpoint. Christian Kirk, they weren't going to pay Christian Kirk anywhere near what Jacksonville ultimately paid him. So they were in on him, but only at like a certain point. And when you get into the Deebo Samuel, A.J. Brown stratosphere, then you're talking about a number of assets, both pick-wise and financially, that would probably be prohibitive for the Eagles.
Tim, you said something, and you're not the first person. A lot of people say this, and I kind of scratch my head, and I call them the "we're not ready" crowd. And the Eagles aren't ready, which I agree with for the most part. I don't think they're a significant contender, but I mean, you and I have been around this team for a while, and I think both of us didn't see 2017 coming. I didn't think they were ready to be a Super Bowl contender. And all of a sudden, things take off, and they are where they are. Is we're not ready? Does that become a self-fulfilling prophecy if you act like that? If can it be dangerous? In other words, if an organization continually kicks the can down the road, especially in the NFL, we see it with the Sixers and what happened, but the NFL is different. There's worst to first every year. When the Eagles won the Super Bowl the year before, they were in last place. Can it be that self-fulfilling prophecy if you get too hung up on we're not ready?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point and a really good discussion point for this reason, John. To me, it brings to mind, and maybe it's not totally fair, but it brings to mind how they ultimately feel about Jalen Hurts. And the reason why I say that is you have a quarterback who's basically on his last year of a rookie deal. When you factor in like, okay, after this year, he's eligible, you're going to have to act like this is around the time where you have to think about if you're going to commit to him, you're going to have to commit to him financially over the long term. But right now, you got all sorts of money freed up because he's only making like $1 million plus, right? So it's if you want to dive in a little bit and take advantage of a quarterback on a rookie contract, like this seems like the season to do it. And to me, if they like, I know they like him, but if they felt like he could deliver the goods like in this window, would they be more aggressive? So it speaks a little bit to that, even if they're not intentionally trying to speak that language. Like that's kind of what part of what I pick up on. And the second part is like, I think they are trying to do the 1 foot in, 1 foot out approach now, recognizing that the roster isn't like in LA Rams territory. And so they're not going to be making LA Rams moves, I think, right now. And I ultimately don't have a problem with that. They're trying to be competitive and make the playoffs while they're building. So ultimately they can get to a spot in like 2 years or whatever it is, a year, somewhere in a 1 to 3 year window where they're getting their first round buys. And that seems to be kind of like their 5 year plan, if you will. So, I don't think it's a problem to have a strategy, but you just want to make sure that you're not selling your fan base short and selling yourself short in the short term for a long-term outlook.
All right, T-Mac, let's combine those two things, the wide receiver position and the half in, half out philosophy. If you're telling me they're just not going to get into play for a Deebo Samuel or an A.J. Brown, okay, fine. But you got to upgrade wide receiver. Oh, we want to give Jalen a chance with Zach Pascal? Really? So does that mean it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to take a wide receiver with one of their first 2 picks? If there's someone that they specifically really like and think is the unquestioned best player, will they be aggressive and trade up to get him? How does wide receiver and first round work for the Eagles 2 days from now?
Well, I think it certainly signals that wide receiver is going to happen at some point, probably early in this draft. It doesn't necessarily for me, Jody Mack, have to be with the first pick or the first 2 picks. Like it seems if you go into that second round, there is, there's
who's that stud wide receiver they're getting with the 51st pick?
Well, I mean, there's quality receivers throughout this draft. I think you're finding that, receivers are coming in abundance in recent drafts. I don't think there's any. Obviously the odds go down. But if like the right one shows up, like as a, for instance, if Jameson Williams drops to 15, like you would have to believe that he would be one of their, guys that they have rated as a blue chip prospect. And there's not many of those. If you talk to people around the league, like the slam dunk guys or guys that are at least close to that. So I think that wide receiver would be in play under the right circumstances. But I don't think that it's something that they're going to trade up for. It doesn't feel like if they're going to trade up, for me, I don't think it's going to be for a wide receiver. I think that's going to be for a corner. Like if Stingley gets close, I think if maybe if they're worried about, let's say, Baltimore getting Jordan Davis at 14, a small trade up for Jordan Davis makes a lot of sense to me. I think that he would fit this defense very well. I think he would provide the exact solution to a problem that Jonathan Gannon had last year of having pure nose tackle, and I think he can do a lot more beyond that. So small trades up for those kind of guys makes more sense to me at wide receiver. And to your point, the odds go down, Jody, as you wait. But I do think that there are some good options in day 2 at wide receiver if it does fall that way for them.
Yeah, I keep hearing that name a lot, Tim. Jordan Davis, Jordan Davis, Jordan Davis. And it might be that targeted trade up, sort of like DeVonta Smith was last year. But if you had to, you mentioned 2 of the names, Jordan Davis and Derek Stingley Jr. Anybody else in that category for that short move up? Not the big leap. I don't think we're going to see the big leap, but the DeVonta Smith sort of short targeted move up because we got to go up past a certain team to get this player.
Maybe if like a Thibodeau were to drop, something like that. But yeah, or if like there's some kind of crazy surprise, like Sauce Gardner falls, but I don't think that's happening. Like he's probably going super early. But yeah, the targeted, I think that's a great way to put it, is the targeted trade up where it sounds like Houston maybe is willing to move out of their pick. And so if you could move up 3 spots and just take away the uncertainty, because I think most general managers around the league view like as far as first round picks, like maybe there's, I don't know, like 10 to 12 ones that they're going to have a first round grade. Maybe some guys go up to like 15. And say your number's at like 10 or 12, and you're sitting at 15, and you have 10 picks overall. I think use that ammunition to go get the guy you want. And Jordan Davis, for me, John, the reason I keep going back to that is, one, we know how they feel about building from the inside out. We know that Fletcher Cox is, he's not long for the Eagles at this point. So there's going to be an opening there. And if you go back to last year's draft, remember Tom Donahoe, he's fist bump to Howie Roseman. Like that was supposed to be a Lee McNeil. And he was that nose tackle that Jonathan Gannon feels like he needs in order for his defense to operate at an efficient level. And so if you can add a 6'6", 341-pound nose tackle who also runs a 4.78 40, and could probably get to the passer a lot more than he actually did in college and destroy some people along the defensive front, like that seems like a perfect Philadelphia fit. But it also seems to me like a perfect Baltimore fit.
Yeah,
that seems to be the kind of guys they like too. So that's why a trade up might make some sense.
If Jordan Davis ends up here, that'll be a big piece for Jonathan Gannon to play with. They added another big piece. As a matter of fact, their only big move this offseason so far has been Hassan Reddick, who I was singing the song for last year when he left Arizona, that I wanted to see him come here to Philadelphia. All right, he did a 1-year quick stopover in Carolina with his ex-college coach. They got to give the kid credit because he took care of someone who took care of him by giving him a scholarship. But now he's back home in Philadelphia. How is he going to be used this year? Judging Gannon, his system and the like, is he going to be with his hand in the dirt? Is he going to be off the line? Is he going to be covering guys in space? How do the Eagles use Hassan Reddick now that they've given him a big boost in contract during this offseason?
Yeah, I think really those were you're hitting on like the 2 major pieces that were missing from Jonathan Gannon's defense last year. One was that nose tackle, and the 2 was the Sam linebacker who could rush from that position. He wants to have the hybrid Sam linebacker that's going to be largely rushing from standing up. And Hassan Reddick, I think, can do that effectively. He's going to be going after the passer, I don't know, 80, 90% of the time. I mean, you don't pay somebody that much money not to, but he is versatile enough where you can use him in a multitude of ways. And I think that that's going to open things up really for that entire defense, Jody Mack. I mean, you talk about a D that was 31st last year in sacks, with just 29 of them. And you add a player in Reddick who had 23.5 over 2 seasons. That's going to be an upgrade, and that's going to be, a big difference for them. Now, Gannon still needs to change the way that he attacks things. Part of the reason they didn't have a lot of sacks is because they were playing so soft, and the quarterbacks were able to get the ball out quickly. So it wasn't all on that front, but certainly they needed some help, and I think Reddick's going to provide it.
Well, the help's got to come in the secondary, and maybe there's more uncertainty there than anywhere else after free agency because Steve Nelson got 2 years in Houston. Rodney McLeod's in Indianapolis, Tim. So you have holes at corner, at safety. You do have those 2 first-round picks. We mentioned Stingley. They've never taken the safety in the first round of the draft, so that's probably a day 2 potential or day 3 option. Or there's the honey badger, Howie always talks about, and he's proven, talent gathering season, as he likes to call it. Steve Nelson came here 2 days before training camp, I think it was last year, Tim. Ronald Darby in August trade. So there's still ways of doing it. But do you expect the Eagles to come out of the first round with a corner, and do you expect them to have a safety, let's say, by the end of day 2?
Yeah, I think that they've been kind of telegraphing how they feel to a certain extent. They've left one of the safety spots open, and they've left one of the corner spots open. And Roseman is on the record saying that he doesn't want to block some of these first round picks from playing, and he's left those spots wide open. So he's at least allowing for the possibility of the Eagles going early at corner or safety. And if it doesn't happen, to your point, they've been kind of talking with the honey badger. It's a possibility, but I think both sides are kind of waiting to see how the draft plays out before acting on that. Corner seems like it could line up at 15 or 18 for them. Trent McDuffie is a player that I believe they like, and is someone that I think that his physicality and the tenacious way that he attacks his position is something that Jonathan Gannon would be drawn to, along with the skill set that I think can lend to him playing both man or zone. There's a couple of scary things. Most notably that he only had 2 interceptions in his entire collegiate career, and that's something that fans would certainly have to overcome. But also the front office. But he doesn't get thrown at a lot, which kind of speaks to the respect that I think that quarterbacks showed him last year. He only got targeted 36 times. He allowed 16 completions for 111 yards and 0 touchdowns. Like when they throw at him, the quarterbacks are ineffective. And I think McDuffie can make some sense at 15 or 18 for them. And the other name that pops into mind is Dax Hill out of Michigan, kind of a hybrid safety, could probably play multiple positions at the next level. I do believe that they have, a level of interest in him as well. And so is that a guy that if they end up trading back in the first round, that could fit into what they're looking for? Those are some of the options. But yes, I do believe that they'll have at least one of those positions accounted for by the end of, let's call it day 2, if not day 1.
T-Mac, let's back it up about 14 months to the Nick Sirianni introductory press conference, which we can, I think, safely say he didn't win over the fan base that day. But if I told you 14 months from them, Nick Sirianni would be the most entrenched head coach in this town right now, a.k.a. Joe Girardi, a.k.a. Doc Rivers, a.k.a. who the hell's been coaching the flag? For the last 4 months. Can you believe that Nick Sirianni is, as I said, the most entrenched coach here in Philadelphia? Most of it has to do with the other coaches in town, but he did a nice job last year, and his players like him. I think he's pretty damn well entrenched, and that's not a bad thing for me. Is it for you?
No, I think it speaks more to what you said. It's more about the rest of the coaches and their wobbly state of affairs. But Sirianni started out rough, and that was both in his presentation publicly, and then the performance of the team on the field, and then things started to stabilize for him. And I think what you saw is even when the water was rocky for the Eagles, that they didn't bail on Sirianni. And that's, something that you're looking for. Like even when they were in their lowest moments, and even though he was the subject of ridicule for some of the things he was saying, the flower and the whole thing, like they were, they took that and they used it as a rallying cry, and they got their coaches back. I think, it's still TBD with Sirianni. Now you're entering year 2, which in theory should be a harder schedule. And let's see how things break. Let's see if the old guards on the offensive line hold up for another year. Let's see what comes out of this. But yeah, he is more stable certainly than he was at the beginning of his tenure. It felt like, at least from a public perspective. And I do feel like things are vibing pretty well internally between him and Howie Roseman. And he's being included in this draft process, and the signing of Zach Pascal shows that he's got a little bit of pull in terms of the players that he's looking for and bringing them in. So yeah, I think that for all the uncertainty of Nick Sirianni coming in, some of that at least has been washed away as he's entering his second year.
Yeah, with everything we get the Deus fist bumps, Tim, between Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni all the time. So everything is copacetic right now. But I do want to talk about off-season work. I think it's interesting, and I don't think it's very important for veteran players. I've said that for a long time, and the rookies aren't even here yet, so it really doesn't matter. But the Eagles started a week later than they could have when it came to the conditioning program. They're one of 2 teams that has no mandatory work with the Cincinnati Bengals post-COVID, or hopefully we don't fall back. Interesting. I think it was Zach Berman who snuck it in at the end of Howie's presser about the decision making behind that. And Howie kind of said, "I'm worried about the draft," and pushed it off to Nick, which I think is ironic because I don't think it's a Nick decision. I've yet to meet the football coach. I say it all the time, Tim, that doesn't want to practice. Maybe Nick's the first guy. I don't believe that. He also strikes me, I think this will shock people, and I want to get your thought. He comes across as he's a very nice man, but he's got a bit of an edge to him. He's got a bit of a temper. I think people don't get to see that. And I think he's more willing to push back than Doug Peterson. Do you see that as a potential problem down the line if he continues to have more success as far as being involved in these types of decisions?
Yeah, I think when you have a general manager and an owner that are as hands-on as they are and involved in almost every aspect of the operation, and you're right to pick up on the fact that Howie dismissed like he didn't have anything. Come on. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yes, he very much has a say in how that thing is structured and how much they're practicing. And, we know that he is involved with the medical team. We know that, he oversees the whole thing, the sports science, and clearly the numbers and the data is telling them that less is more when it comes to this offseason stuff, that in order to keep the injuries lower, you do almost as little as you can to try to just get to a point, where you're near the finish line and you have as many bodies as you can. And Sirianni is going along with that. He probably believes it to a certain extent, but yeah, I'm sure it's hard for a guy that loves to be out there and loves to compete, that he's not out there more. And if you look at, and it's kind of hard to quantify once you get to this spot, but there was so much conversation leading into last year. It's like, they weren't doing anything. They canceled, some of their mini camps. Then they didn't play anybody in the preseason. And then there's a big discussion about what that means for the regular season. They start out like terrible in the first half of the year. And it's hard to know, like, is that related or not? But it's going to be a continuing conversation, this off season, I think for sure. And yes, to finish the point, like when you have an owner and a GM that are that involved in the football side of the operation, and then you have a coach that feels empowered more, like, yeah, there's going to be conflict. Like that's kind of what happened with Peterson. He felt like after a while, like, they're just crowding me too much. And he wanted to push the elbows out and be like, I'm a Super Bowl winning coach, man. You can't dictate to me everything. So that absolutely the dynamics in play, because we've seen it before. And, it's possible it happens again. Sure.
T-Mac, usually my partner here, John McMullen, plays bad cop to my good cop more often than not. But I'll go glass half empty. I'll go glass half empty here. Which Eagle is most likely this offseason to remove any pictures and or mentions of the Philadelphia Eagles from his social media accounts? Because he's got a little bit of a mad on about the organization. And that could include the coach who you were just discussing.
No, not yet.
Is he a social media guy even?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So we'll stick to the players on this. Any chance we get any Eagle trying to make a statement through social media this offseason?
Man, I'm trying to come up with them.
I'm going to give you one because he's already done. Well, he hasn't already done it, but he goes on and off social media, and that's Jalen Reagor. I mean, he doesn't remove.
I don't know if he's going to be here.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my next question, but I'll finish it there.
Yeah. So I'm trying, because they have done a pretty decent job of locking up guys that, that they believe in, that are approaching. Like that whole 2018 class got locked up. Slay, I guess, could be a possibility. Like if he sees the corner market skyrocket, I would. But other than that, like I feel like, and Cox, I just don't think that's going to be a storyline at that point. He'll probably have moved on. I don't foresee a ton of those. I don't think that's something Hurts would do. So there, I don't think there's a lot of candidates.
It's happening, no problem. Just just try to stir it up a little bit there.
It's a good exercise, Jody Mac. You
got to think about that stuff.
Yeah,
he is Tim McManus. Follow him on Twitter at Tim_McManus. Read him at ESPN.com. Nobody covers this team better than Timmy Mac. I'll leave it here with you. May 1st, Tim. We're down at the NovaCare complex. Is Jalen Reagor going to be there? Is Andre Dillard going to be there? Are they going to be a part of this team May 1st?
Well, I can tell you that my understanding with Reagor is that the Eagles are open to taking offers for him. So that's happening. And whether it comes to fruition is kind of a TBD, but it won't be, because there aren't any wheels in motion on that front. I think that if we see the way that things are going, the way that the Eagles have been talking publicly about the fact, we think we have a 1 in Devontae Smith. Quez Watkins is, this is before Pascal came in, Quez Watkins is our 2. And then it took them a while till they got down to Reagor. It's almost like he is starting to exit the conversation a little bit. But my understanding is that he was at the beginning of the offseason training program. So he's there and he's working. And just because, talks could be happening about a trade doesn't mean that it comes to fruition. And so it's just kind of it's a wait and see there. But I think that the best that we can say is that the Eagles aren't banking on him as being a primary option this year. And let's see if he's ultimately ends up on the roster. Andre Dillard, I think it would have to take a pretty nice offer, because back even like high end or like quality tackles. How should we put him? Above average tackles,
starting level tackle, I would say.
Like,
there's some bad tackles in this league.
There's a lot of bad tackles out there, and if there's one injury to the tackle set out of your starters, then he becomes valuable very quickly. So I would say there's probably a decent chance that Dillard's on this roster, and Reagor seems to be up in the air.
You can get all his Eagle insight at ESPN.com. Yeah, every once in a while you'll catch him jumping on the Fanatic on the radio side as well. We're glad he hopped on with us today. It's been a minute. Glad to get you back, D-Mac. We'll do it again soon. Enjoy your draft work this week, big guy.
Always love talking with the Macs. Good spending some time with you guys.
Thanks, Tim.
Our pleasure. Tim McManus, a triple Mac attack with John McMullen and Jody McDonald here on Birds 365. All right, couple minutes left. We got to come back, put a bow on the show.
Yeah, we got to talk about the bus trip, Jody. The bus trip down to Atlantic City.
Neither you nor I are getting on the bus, but it sounds like a party down in Atlantic City. Combine good JAKIB Media sports talk with Eagles content, and a couple of cocktails, stateside vodka. Hey, you can't go wrong. We'll come back with more details on that in a minute.